He was reincarnated with negative 255 Riz, but he gains over 100 billion stat points, which makes him stronger than a god in his new world. The story begins with a man named Oka, who knows he's ugly, but he's learned to accept his appearance and live a happy life. But one day, a girl falsely accuses him of harassing her, so he denies the accusation and tries to leave, but he stumbles and scatters his shopping bags. Everyone sees the adult games he bought, so they think he's guilty, and Oka realizes that the world isn't fair to ugly people like him. So he pleads guilty to avoid further humiliation, but the judge fines him 300,000 yen, and he gets fired from his job. A few years later, we learn that the woman who framed him was arrested because she falsely accused ugly men of harassing her, but she only received probation since she was a minor. Oka was traumatized by the false accusation, and he couldn't get a job, so he became a shut-in who lived with his parents. In the present, we see Oka surfing the net, and he comes across a mysterious post about reincarnating to another world. He dismisses it as a joke, but since he has nothing else to do, he decides to follow the guide to be reincarnated. He suddenly gets a notification, which asks him if he's ready to proceed with a new life, but it warns him that he would need to sacrifice half his lifespan to return. He thinks it must be a virus, but he clicks next anyway, and a character creation form appears. He sets his looks to the lowest value possible, but he realizes that he gained bonus points for doing that, and he sees that he can add special notes. But instead of writing something positive, he decides to reduce his earnings to 0 and make himself suffer if he ever touches a woman. He gathers over 100 trillion bonus points, but before he can use them to improve his attributes, he suddenly runs out of time, and he's teleported to the other world. The next day, Oka wakes up in his new body, and he soon meets other people who follow the same ritual to get reincarnated. Oka notices a boy named Seiji, who's talking to the girls, but Oka isn't interested in forming friendships, so he starts searching for useful items. He finds a coin, but it magically disappears when he tries to pick it up, so he remembers how he had set his income rate to 0. After gathering all the starter items, everyone distributes them equally, but Seiji realizes that they only have 7 coins in total, which makes the girls wonder if someone took one of them. He asks Oka about it, and he's disappointed that they don't trust him, but he knows that he can't have any money, so he tells them they can have his share. Seiji thinks they can't exclude him like that, but the girl named Seika thinks it makes sense, because he's the only one who didn't find coins. They play rock paper scissors to decide how the weapons will be distributed, and Oka ends up with the club, while Seiji takes the axe. He offers a handshake of friendship, but Oka refuses to make the same mistakes from his past life, so he decides to go solo instead. Seiji shows everyone the map, and suggests heading to the nearby town of Iria, but Oka only decides to go with the party so that he can leave them halfway through the journey. As they open the door, they're shocked to see a goblin waiting outside, but Seiji kills it with his axe. They notice multiple goblins coming towards them, so Seiji tells the girl named Ritsu to help him fight them, and he asks Oka to protect Seika as she loads her arrows. He's impressed that Seiji is leading from the front, but he notices Seika struggling to tie her bowstring. A goblin suddenly attacks him, and Seiji tells him to handle it, but even a direct hit from his club is unable to cause any damage. Seika is surprised by how weak he is, and the goblin hits his legs, so he falls to his knees. He wonders why he's so weak, because he should have a lot of bonus points, but he remembers how he ran out of time during character creation, so he wasn't able to improve his stats. He's angry at his bad luck, and he takes out his frustration on the goblin, hitting it with all his might. He manages to defeat it, and he gets a notification that he has leveled up, but he's surprised that he's already at level 31. So he checks his attributes, and he notices that he has an experience multiplier of 10,000, which explains why he leveled up so fast. Seiji and Ritsu also level up, and they decide to upgrade their stamina and strength, while Oka adds 1 trillion points to each of his stats. He suddenly starts glowing with divine energy, as the system declares him an absolute god, and he realizes that another goblin is hitting him, but because of his new powers, he can't even feel it. He decides to test his new strength, and gently flicks its head, but it sends the goblin flying, so he realizes he's become OP. He notices that Seika still can't string her bow, so he decides to help her, and she's impressed as he quickly ties it using his maxed up dexterity skill, so she tells him to take the first shot, and he activates his skill called the ultimate destruction shot. His arrow flies up into the sky, so he wonders if he missed. But a magic circle suddenly appears, and a dragon comes out of it, eliminating the goblins in its path. Everyone's amazed by his power, and Seika wonders how he did that, so Oka makes an excuse that he was in the archery club. She offers to handle the rest of the goblins, so he returns her bow, and as more goblins arrive, she starts shooting at them, but all her shots miss, and she's disappointed as she runs out of arrows. So Oka creates new arrows using his craftsmanship skill, and tells her that she dropped them. She quickly picks them up and starts shooting again. Seiji and Ritsu eliminate all the remaining goblins, but Oka worries about Seika, so he decides to stick with them until they reach their destination. They soon make it to Iria, and they notice a hamburger restaurant, which makes them happy. But as everyone goes in, Oka decides to leave because he thinks he needs to maintain his isolated lifestyle. He sits near a fountain, but he suddenly feels hungry because he doesn't have money to buy food. He's surprised as Seika arrives, and he falls into the water, so she asks him if he's okay. But she gives him a burger, telling him it's a token of appreciation for stringing her bow earlier, and he's surprised by how kind she is. He goes to grab the burger, but his fingers accidentally touch her, and he feels an electric shock as he loses HP, while the burger smashes against the wall. He receives 50 trillion damage from the brief contact, and he's still processing his loss, but he notices Seika crying because she thinks he rejected her gift. He uses his corporate communication skills and tells her she's so beautiful that his hands were trembling, but he would still happily eat that burger. Seika gives him her other burger, as she apologizes for making him nervous. Oka happily eats the burger and thinks he owes her, so he decides to stick with the group until he can pay her back, and puts his plan to go solo on hold. Seika and Oka visit the weapons store, and Seika tries to buy multiple bundles of arrows, but the shopkeeper tells her they only have a limited stock. Oka notices that her bag is already full of arrows, and even though he could easily create more for her, he can't give them to her without causing suspicion. Seiji and Ritsu soon arrive, and they mention that they found a new inn, but Oka decides to just sleep in the park. Seika thinks he's doing it since he's poor, so she offers to pay his bill, but he doesn't want to be a burden to her. She becomes emotional, thinking he must hate her, but he tells her that isn't the case, so she grabs his arm and leads him to the inn, and he notices that he doesn't take damage if she touches him through his clothes. At the inn, Seiji plans their finances, while Oka worries that he can't keep owing favors to Seika. He realizes that he must find a way to earn money. The next morning, Oka brings breakfast for everyone, which surprises them, so he lies that a kind person gave it to him. We learn that he actually bought the breakfast by crafting arrows and taking them to the weapons store, but since he can't earn money, he traded them for food. He knows that he sold them at a loss, but he's still glad that he could repay Seika's kindness. After breakfast, Seiji tells them that they should prepare for their next adventure, and Seika thinks they should explore the city first. But he mentions that they need to find a good source of income, and notes that there's a cave near the city that they should explore, but Ritsu wonders if it's safe. A man named Shiro suddenly interrupts them and asks them if they're heading to the Arga cave, because they'll need an expert navigator to explore it. He shows them an item, which can help them get a discount at the inn, and he mentions that they should have found it in the first log house, but he decides to share it since they don't have it. Seiji wonders who he is, so he introduces himself as a guide for beginner adventurers, but Oka finds him suspicious because he only works with new adventurers. But Oka is confident that he can keep everyone safe if Shiro tries to harm them. They strike a deal and head towards the cave, but on their way, they encounter a group of goblins. Seika shoots arrows at them, and she misses all of them, so Shiro advises her to conserve arrows, but she assures him that she has plenty. He thinks she should be more careful, and tells her to think that each of her arrows costs 100 million yen. So she aims carefully, and she manages to hit a goblin, which impresses everyone. They continue their journey, and Shiro trains Ritsu and Seiji. Shiro notices that Oka isn't training, so he makes an excuse that he doesn't possess any skill worthy of being trained. But Shiro mentions that clubs have an overpowered ultimate move, and Oka knows that he's telling the truth. We learn that when he went outside the town to craft arrows, he ran into a giant orc, so he tried to test his strongest club skill. But the system warned him that if he activated it, the impact would destroy everything within a 200-kilometer radius, so he decided against using such a deadly move. Shiro tells him to be more active in battle, or he'll also retire early like him, revealing that he was part of a mercenary group. But he left the group halfway because he noticed the power difference between him and the captain. He reveals that his former comrade is now a king, and he has reached level 80, but he has a status average of 160. Shiro thinks Oka is amazed, but he's actually surprised by how weak the king is. They soon reach the cave entrance, and judging from its looks, Oka thinks it will be quite interesting. They head inside, and he notices that Seika is scared, so he wonders if she's a child. She's thrilled to see stalactites, but Shiro warns her that they might fall, which once again makes Oka wonder how old she is. Seiji politely asks her age, mentioning that he was 30 in their previous world, but Seika surprises them when she reveals she's 17. They reach a giant door, and Seika is excited to see what's on the other side, but she stops as she realizes that no one's opening it. Shiro tells her that it's the boss's room, and she'll die if she enters it. Seiji thinks they should call it a day, but Shiro notes that he has a special event planned for them, and he leads them to a room, claiming it's a safe spot that monsters and magic can't penetrate, and Seika notices snacks on the table. So Shiro tells them it's a welcome party for adventurers who made it this far, but Oka realizes that the food is poisoned. He knows that it's an anesthetic drug, but he's confident that it won't work on him. They all start enjoying the snacks, but Oka wants to slow them down so that he can use his antidote magic on them. He asks them what they were doing before coming to this world, but they're all shocked, and he realizes he shouldn't have asked such a sensitive question, but Seiji offers to share his story. We go back to when Seiji was just a student, and we learn that he hated school, so he left his parents' home. He eventually started his own company called Success Life, which Oka recognizes, because he once worked with them. He mentions that a salesman once came to sell them a machine, and Seiji starts to negotiate the price. But the salesman's attitude impressed him, and he advised Seiji to enjoy his life, so he left his company and started traveling while expanding his business. His company made progress, but it eventually went bankrupt because of an incident related to AI development, so everyone in the company suffered, and he became mentally ill. He felt like he couldn't repay the salesman for his kind advice, so he left their old world, with a promise to never let people down. Seiji reveals that the salesman's name was Mr. Shigeru, and he asks Oka for his last name. But he knows that he's the salesman in the story, so he lies that it's Sasaki, and everyone suddenly collapses as Shiro and his men arrive. He's happy that their job was easy, but we see that Oka is still awake, and he thinks that since everyone is unconscious, he can use his full power. But Seiji suddenly gets up despite being under the drug's influence, and he tells them not to touch his friends, so they grab him, and Oka is worried that attacking them might hurt him as well. But he fights back, so they throw him away, and Oka sees an opening. Shiro orders his men not to hurt the prisoners, because it will reduce their value, so Seiji realizes that they've been kidnapping reincarnated adventurers. He thinks they're the worst, because they hurt people who are desperately looking for another chance, and he notes that he won't spare them if they try to touch his friends. Shiro laughs at him, and orders his men to tie them up, but Oka jumps on them, and uses his weight to knock them down, but they outnumber him and start fighting dirty. So Seiji is angry, and decides to show them his ultimate move, which he got after converting all of his bonus points into a promise to never betray his friends. He reveals that his ultimate skill is triggered by anger, and he tells them to surrender, but they aren't afraid of him. Seiji transforms and he grows wings, which shocks everyone, and he reveals that his name is Aldine. He charges at the kidnappers, but instead of hitting them with his ultimate move, he stops just before he makes contact. He notes that he could easily deliver judgment upon them, but he doesn't want to rob them of the opportunity to redeem themselves. Shiro surrenders and lays down his weapon, so Seiji walks away, telling them he won't show mercy if they choose the evil path again, but Oka thinks he shouldn't turn his back on them. Shiro tries to attack him from behind, but Oka causes him to trip, and the kidnappers start kicking him, so he pretends that Seiji's friends have shown up. While they're distracted, he removes dirt from his nose, and instantly destroys the wall with it. He tells them it was Seiji's attack, but he has no idea what's happening, so Oka mentions that he saw a white-winged falcon responding to the hero's anger. They kneel and ask for forgiveness, while Shiro promises to change his ways, and even though Oka doesn't believe them, he tells them to form a line. He tells Seiji to hit them, so that they can feel the pain of others, thinking Seiji's power will hurt them if they still have bad intentions. But he suddenly returns to normal, because he's no longer angry, and he also thinks that the whip of love shouldn't be used with anger, or else it would only be satisfying to him. He orders them to stand straight and starts slapping their faces while they thank him for educating them. After that, Seiji moves the girls to their beds, and even though Oka wants to help, he knows that he can't touch them. Seiji suddenly collapses, and Shiro realizes that the drugs are finally working, so they ask Oka to join them, promising to give him women and money. But he breaks the handcuffs, so they freak out, and they realize that even though he looks ugly, he has a heart of justice. He tells Seiji he did a great job, and they make fun of his ugly face, but he completely ignores them. They return to the inn, where we see that they've already handed over the kidnappers to the authorities, and they received a bounty of 10 million yen, because the kidnappers were wanted men. Seiji wants to share it with everyone, but Seika notes that all they did was sleep, so they don't deserve a portion of the reward. Seiji thinks he put them in danger, and he shouldn't have trusted Shiro, but Seika reminds him that he defeated Shiro's group. She wonders if Oka was also awake, so Seiji tells them how he used his body as a shield, so she calls him the real MVP. Seiji asks him to take the money, but he knows that he can't have any because of his curse. So he uses his salesman tactics to lie, telling them he spends money foolishly, so he's bad at managing money. Seiji takes the money and distributes it equally, but when he tries to give Oka his share, he once again refuses, telling him he can't carry cash. Seika volunteers to take it instead, promising to give it to him whenever he needs it. After that, Seika takes Oka to the restaurant, and while she's buying lunch, he thinks that with 25,000 rya, he can repay her and survive on his own, so he doesn't need to stick with them anymore. He thinks it will be their last meal together, but Seika suddenly returns and gives him the big burger. She reveals that she fell in love with burgers 2 days ago, which makes him realize that she had her first burger recently, so he thinks she must have been a sheltered girl. She asks about his stats, and he lies that they're basic, so she thinks it's a shame he didn't pay attention to the character customization. She explains that she found a trick where lowering the appearance stat increases bonus points, and he thinks she didn't lower her looks, but she reveals that she set them to -16. He can't understand how she's still beautiful despite that, so she reveals that in a special note under her stats, she asked to be pretty. He's shocked hearing this, thinking he could have used the trick to look like a handsome model, but he doesn't even remember his name. She suddenly notices a cat, and notes that she's never seen one so close, so he tells her she can go and touch it. But she suddenly trips, so he rushes to cushion her. But she manages to recover, and she asks him what's wrong, so he explains that he was just exercising, and she goes to pet the cat. He heads to the restroom and starts to cry, as he remembers how earlier, when she said she wished to become pretty, she was touching her hand instead of her face. So he thinks she must have suffered from a disease affecting her hands and legs, and he finds it tragic that a young girl had to go through such things. But he suddenly remembers that he has the absolute god title, so he thinks it's his job to help her. Seika starts knocking on the door, asking Oka if he has an upset stomach, so he mentions that he'll be out soon. But he thinks she lacks social experience, because she was bedridden in her past life. He realizes that she'll be an easy target for criminals, so bearing the title of an absolute god, he wants to make sure that she's safe. He leaves the restroom, and finds her waiting for him, because she was worried about his health. They rejoin the group, and Seiji suggests that they should determine their jobs, because it will help them in battle. Seiji chooses to be a hero since it's his goal, while Ritsu chooses to become a mage, and he thinks Oka should be an epic fighter. Seika interrupts them, and tells them she also wants to be a hero, but Oka asks her if she would like to be an epic fighter just like him, but she mentions that she isn't interested, and they all gear up with new equipment. After they complete their class change, Seika approaches Oka, and proudly tells him that with her new outfit, she's transformed into a great mage. He tells her she looks great, and he's glad she ended up deciding against being a hero. The group holds a meeting, where Seiji tells them they'll be heading to the Principality of Valeria, and he announces that they shouldn't spend a lot on snacks, which makes Seika emotional. She asks Ritsu if she wants to jump rope with her, and she agrees to do it, so they decide to go to the park, while Oka is happy to see them getting along. We go back to the moment when they both went to the weapons store, but Seika seems to be interested in the ones made for fighters. So Oka tells her that mages rarely use weapons, and with the help of the salesman, he convinces her to buy a skipping rope. Oka shows her how to play with it, and she's surprised to see that he can move well despite his size. But he notices that she's thinking of something, so she mentions that she wants to teach Ritsu, but thinks she's too distant. Oka realizes that she must want to have privacy, since they all practically ran from their old lives, but he comes up with an idea that might work. We return to the present, as Oka observes the two girls playing as he hides behind a bush, and Ritsu easily masters the skill. But when Seika asks her to introduce herself, she suddenly falls silent, so Seika decides to call her leads, because it resembles a breeze. Ritsu continues jumping rope, but she jumps to the sky, and everyone's impressed with her acrobatics. As she lands, everyone circles her and starts praising her, asking her to join their group, but Seika suddenly starts crying, so Oka comes out of hiding. They think he's so ugly that he should be arrested, but Ritsu tells them he's her party member, which they find hard to believe. He tells her she should be more considerate and at least answer Seika, because it's insensitive to ignore someone, but Ritsu apologizes and runs away. After that, Seika finds a message from Ritsu, who apologizes for her behavior, and she thanks Seika for the beautiful nickname she gave her. She wants to be friends with Seika, which makes her happy, and she goes looking for Ritsu, while Oka realizes that she's hiding, so he tells her to come out. She takes him to another room, where she performs a jumping kneel as she apologizes. He wonders why she's apologizing, so she reveals that she knows his last name isn't Sasaki, and notes that he's the salesman who met Seiji in their previous world. Oka wonders how she knows his real name, so she reveals that she has an ability from her special notes, which allows her to read other people's status windows. So he realizes that she must know everything about him, including his absolute god status and weakness around women. She asks him if he knows about Seika's past, revealing that she's the one who broke her, and she's there to redeem herself. She reveals that she was part of an AI program in the previous world, where she met Seika, and even though she wished for everyone's happiness, Seika got hurt in an accident. He wonders if it was the same AI program that destroyed Seiji's company, so she reveals that he's actually her brother. But since she looks completely different from the previous world, he couldn't recognize her, and Oka thinks it makes sense, because Seiji couldn't recognize him either. Ritsu mentions how she heard that he could make others smile, so she was looking for him, but he wonders if she's telling the truth. So she reveals that she can't lie, because it was the cost of her repentance in the special notes, and she asks for his help in making Seika and Seiji smile. He thinks they're both innocent, and they'll be easy targets for criminals, so he decides to work with her. She cuts her hair, explaining that she did it because she made a vow to herself, and Seika had also told her that short hair would suit her more. The next day, the group prepares to travel to the Principality of Valeria. Ritsu joins them, and Seika likes her new haircut, so she starts talking to her, which makes Oka happy for them. On their way, they come across monsters, and Seika takes out a few of them with her magic. Seika is confident because her magic talent is blooming, but Seiji realizes it's getting dark, so they need to set up camp. We learn that they had chosen a steeper route because of Seika's request, and they soon find a cave to stay the night. She cleans the floor, mentioning that it's her first time camping, so Seiji suggests dividing the work, and she decides to go fishing. Oka accompanies her, and they sit near the river, but they can't catch anything. She tells him she wants to be less whiny, since she sometimes cries for no reason, but he mentions that people sometimes cry because their heart is passionate about something. He thinks that if she can't understand the reason why she's crying, she should ask herself what moved her heart, so she starts crying again. They're interrupted by Ritsu, who mentions that the fire is ready, but Seika notes that they haven't had any luck. So Ritsu takes out her bow and shoots the fish in the water, allowing her to catch them. They soon reach the camp, where everyone enjoys their food, and Oka asks Seiji about the goal of their journey. So he realizes that they don't have proper goals, but notes that they'll figure out their next step when they reach Valeria. They suddenly hear footsteps, and they see an injured girl named Rhea, who collapses because of her injuries. We go back to when she was being pursued by two men, who wanted to punish her, but she hid behind a tree, since she was in no position to fight them. She remembers how it's all because she vowed to kill all pretty girls, since her boyfriend left her for them, and they never treated her with respect. We return to the present, as Rhea wakes up, and finds Seiji sitting next to her. He tells her that Seika used healing magic to help her recover, so she mentions that it's cool, but Seika tells her she should say thank you instead. And Oka notices how Seika is sad because of her rude response, but he thinks she should be more careful around strangers. We see that when Seiji asked Oka to bring water for Rhea, Ritsu told him about her special notes, that she promises to kill all the beautiful girls, so they fear that she might target Seika. In the present, Seiji wonders how she got her wounds, so she tells him that her party was attacked, and they had to split up after they ran for their lives. Seiji notes that he would protect her until they reached their destination, but she wonders if she can trust him, so Seika tells her he would never betray anyone. He asks Rhea if she feels better, so she lies that she has a bit of a fever. Rhea asks Seika to accompany her to the river, and she agrees to do it, but she returns her weapon, telling her they might encounter monsters. Ritsu follows them, and Oka thinks he should also go, but Seiji stops him, so he explains that Rhea is dangerous. Seiji agrees that they'll get burned if they touch her carelessly, and he thinks Seika will take care of herself, so they should continue eating while they wait. But Oka realizes that Seiji doesn't know about Rhea's special notes, so he must do something on his own. He uses his super speed to travel back and forth between the river and the camp, so Seiji thinks he's glitching. But he tricks Seiji into thinking he's tired, and uses his sleep spell to make him fall asleep. Rhea drinks the fresh water, which makes her feel better, and she mentions that Seiji is cool, but he's still inexperienced. She wishes that she could join their group, which makes Seika excited, because she wants her to be in their party. But Rhea mentions that it can't happen, since she wrote that she'll kill pretty girls in her special notes. Seika thinks she isn't pretty, and wonders if she did anything bad to her, so Rhea explains that she didn't, but she can't go against what she wrote for herself. She reveals that seeing pretty girls stirs up an uncontrolled urge in her head, and she's done terrible things that can't be undone, so Seika starts crying, asking her why she wrote such a terrible thing. So Rhea tells her that the pretty girls in their old world stole her man, and made her a laughingstock. She reveals that ever since she arrived in this world, she's been changing parties and taking out pretty girls, but she thinks it will all end tonight, because she'll join their group after she kills Seika. She prepares to finish her off, but Ritsu shoots her sword out of her hand, so she tries to grab it again, but Oka stops her, telling her she's reached a dead end. But Seika suddenly starts glowing, so they wonder what's happening, and they watch her as she transforms into an angel. She approaches Rhea, who threatens to kill her if she gets closer, but she knows that Rhea doesn't want to do that, and she admits that her special notes are forcing her to kill pretty girls. Oka feels sorry for her, because he knows that they can't change the special notes, and Seika offers to help her solve her problem. Rhea tells her to stay back, but she uses her healing spell to regrow Rhea's lost arm, and Oka thinks it's a miracle, because he can't regenerate lost limbs despite being an absolute god. She reveals that she wrote a wish in her special notes, so she can turn into an angel to heal her friends, and help them get back what they lost. She notes that in the previous world, she had a huge wound on her face, and she lost one of her eyes, so she knows what it's like to lose something she should have. She tells Rhea she can't heal the wound inside her, but Rhea shouts at her to stop acting like they're friends, and mentions that she can't kill her since she's ugly. Rhea runs off, so Ritsu starts following her, and Seika collapses as she returns to normal. So Oka catches her, thinking she must have been scared, and he tells her she did a great job. We see Rhea riding on a tree, and she prepares to gouge her eyes out, but Oka suddenly stops her, revealing that he was able to find her thanks to Ritsu. She thinks it's the only way to stop herself from killing pretty girls, but Oka doesn't want her to hurt herself, and offers to make a deal with her. He reveals that he can remove her sight without hurting her, but she doesn't believe him, so he shows her his high-level dark magic, explaining that it can seal one of the 5 senses. So he can use it to blind her, and he reveals that light magic can remove it, but he tells her she needs to live stronger in exchange. She asks him why he's going so far just to protect Seika, so he reveals that he also messed up his special notes, and he wanted to leave the party at first, because he doesn't trust people. But she touched him with her kindness, and he wanted to repay her, so he decided to stay in the party to protect her. Rhea reveals that she's jealous of her, because she has a party filled with great people, so he asks Rhea if she wants to join them. But she explains that she can't do that, because she has already caused damage, so she thinks she needs to be alone, telling him to use his magic to blind her. After that, Seika wakes up, and Oka tells her everything that happened, but she can't believe she has a special power. She wants to use it to help people, but he advises her to keep it a secret, because criminals may try to steal it from her. He explains that he's giving her advice because she's only 17, and adds that she's also beautiful, so she's a target for criminals. She wonders what he wants her to do, so he explains that he isn't telling her to doubt everything, but to get to know the people she's dealing with, so that she can tell if they're up to no good. She promises to be more careful, and he tells her to call him if she's in trouble so that he can rush to her side. She thanks him for looking after her and offers him a handshake, but he knows that he'll take damage if he touches her. He decides to do it anyway, and he endures the pain as he tries not to crush her hand. The next day, Oka tells Seiji that Rhea left the previous night and reveals that she left a message on a tree, thanking them for healing her injuries. Seiji mentions that he wanted to see her off, but Oka tells him it's okay, because she was happy when she left, and he reveals that she said something about finding her own way. After that, they make their way to Valeria, and Seika is excited to see what it's like, but Oka recalls the conversation he had with Ritsu. He tells her about what happened to Rhea, and she can't believe that Seika can turn into an angel, but he wonders why she didn't know about it, because she can read everyone's special notes. So she explains that Seika's notes didn't mention anything about her transformation, and reveals that Seiji's case is different, because he wrote down a detailed transformation process. Oka wants to know what's written in his special notes, telling her he wants to know his weakness, so she agrees to write everything on a piece of paper, but he wonders why she's acting strange. He tells her she can do it after Seiji sets his goal for the journey, revealing that he wants to gather info in the city so that he can find out what they need to do. But Oka notes that he wants Seiji to be king, and explains that Shiro told him how his friend took the throne, so he thinks reincarnated adventurers can rule the land. He explains that Seika and Seiji are both innocent, but Seiji maintains his innocence despite knowing how dark the world is, so Oka thinks Seika can live a better life if he becomes the ruler of the land. Ritsu thinks Oka should be the king, but he explains that he isn't cut out for it, because he isn't a team player like Seiji, revealing that he prefers working alone. He thinks Seiji would be a better king, and Ritsu asks him to take care of her brother, so he tells her they should work together. Back in the present, Oka thinks about helping Seika and Seiji level up, and Seiji mentions that they've almost reached Valeria, but they see a group of monsters blocking their path. Everyone charges in, but he notes that he needs to tie his shoelaces, so he tells his friends he'll catch up to them. Oka realizes he's lying, because he doesn't have shoelaces, but Seika believes him and rushes ahead. The monsters prepare to fight her, but Oka protects her with his wind wall, and tells her not to run off. He sees that Seiji is trying to transform, but he suddenly realizes that his clothes will be ruined if he turns into Aldine, so he takes them off and folds them before trying again. Oka realizes that it will take time for him to transform, so he leads the others to a tower, where he buffs them with his blessings, allowing them to defeat the approaching goblins. He sees monsters climbing the stairs, and he doesn't want to wipe them out, because he wants his friends to level up, so he summons his mud golems to fight them. Seiji finally manages to transform, and he rushes to his friends, asking them if they're okay. Seika asks him who he is, so he reveals that he's a wandering hero named Aldine, and tells her to leave everything to him. He sends the monsters flying, and everyone's impressed by his powers, but a giant golem suddenly appears. He tries to cut it with his hand, but it doesn't work, and he accuses the golem of sealing his hand. But he mentions that he won't give up, because he has sworn to never betray his friends, and he eliminates the monsters with his sword. After that, Seika tells Seiji about Aldine, and she thinks he's amazing, saying she wants to thank him for saving them. Seiji plays dumb, but notes that her feelings will surely reach Aldine, and he screams Aldine's name, calling him a hero. So Oka realizes that he's childish, so he wonders if he should really help him become king. They arrive in the city of Valeria, and Oka notes that it's like a province, but he's surprised to see a castle with a job center next to it. They give their pack animal to a man, who tells Seiji to fill out a form, but he thinks Oka is also an animal, so he notes that he can't keep him there. Seiji explains that he's a party member, and the man is surprised hearing this, but Seika mentions that one of the animals looks like him. He sees that it's also ugly, but she thinks it's cute, and she plays with the animals, as he realizes that she finds everything attractive. They look around the city, and Oka notes that the world looks amazing, but it's actually a difficult place to live in, because the monsters don't drop money, and everyone needs to buy food to survive. So he realizes that his party needs to find a source of income, and thinks he must help Seiji and Seika earn money without revealing his powers. That evening, Seiji reveals that he asked around the city, and he realized that they must find a job to make money. Seiji notes that they need to earn at least 200,000 yen per month, and Oka can't believe they have to go job hunting, telling Seiji there are still high-paying jobs available. Oka reveals that he went to the job center and saw positions that pay millions of yen per month, but he thinks they look suspicious because they seem too good to be true. Seiji notes that sketchy jobs require no experience for enormous pay, and he asks Oka if he wants to go to the casino, so he wonders if Seiji wants to gamble. But he explains that he just plans to gather info because he asked around the city, so he knows that people don't make a lot of money from ordinary jobs. But he thinks he can find rich people in the casino, and he wants to know how they make money, telling Oka he plans to find the best path for their party. They decide to go to the casino, where Seika plays roulette, but she mentions that she's getting dizzy. A girl asks Oka if he wants a drink, but she's disgusted by his appearance, and she immediately walks away, so he realizes that it will be hard for him to gather info. He sees that Seiji has started asking around, while Ritsu uses her skill to read other people's windows, and she sees something that catches her attention. Seika wins the game, and Oka tells her he's happy for her, but she goes all in and ends up losing everything. After that, he asks her how much money she lost, but she tells him she isn't sure, so he reminds her that she started with 5 million yen. She checks her pockets and tells him she still has 3 million, so he realizes that she lost a lot of money. A man named Kajita suddenly approaches her and reveals that he's the casino's manager. He thinks she must be rich, and she tells him it's true, so he realizes that he was right about her, revealing that he's been observing her. He invites her to speak in private, but Oka thinks he's suspicious, so he asks him if he can join them. Kajita thinks he must be her bodyguard, so he allows him to tag along, and we see them in Kajita's room, where he mentions that he was impressed by the way Seika gambled. He notes that she must be rich since she went all in without hesitation, and she's flattered hearing this, but Oka thinks it isn't a compliment. Kajita tells her he has something special for her, and he shows her an extra stage pass, telling her she can use it to access games that their other customers can't play. He mentions that people usually pay 2 million yen for it, but he tells her she can have it for free if she accepts it, and she wonders why she's been chosen. So he explains that it's because he can feel her passion for gambling, but Oka knows that she's being played, and he tells her to discuss everything with Seiji before accepting the card. She decides to go with his advice, and Kajita tells her to introduce her friends to him, thinking they must also be rich, but she mentions that she's richer than they are. He tells her not to tell the other customers about his offer, and notes that he's looking forward to hearing from her, so she thinks he's a nice person. Seika leaves to find Seiji, while Oka asks Ritsu about Kajita, so she reveals that he's bad news, because she read his special notes, and it mentions that he wants to take everything from people that are rich. That evening, Seiji tells Seika that he finds Kajita suspicious, and Oka mentions that he's a smooth talker who's skilled at making people think they're special. He thinks Kajita is dangerous, and Seika wonders how he knows that, but he doesn't want to tell her about Ritsu's skill, so he just jokes about being a detective. Seiji shows them the suspicious job postings, and notes that they're all connected to the casino, revealing that he interviewed the people who applied for the jobs. He mentions that the contact person was different for each posting, but all job assignments were at the casino, and he reveals that the people he interviewed didn't pass, saying he couldn't find anyone who was hired. But he notes that he found a man named Kai, who revealed that his friend was hired in the casino, and his task was to find gamblers. But Seiji reveals that the man is now missing, and Kai tried to look for him, but he realized that his friend's house was an empty lot, and everyone was acting like he never existed. Oka thinks the people who worked for the casino were erased, and Ritsu reveals that she found something at the casino's entrance, but everyone realizes it's a human finger. She reveals that it was dropped by a man who was carrying a bag, and Seiji realizes that the casino is doing something questionable, so he thinks they should investigate it. Seika volunteers to go undercover, telling everyone the manager has recruited her, and she notes that she's the richest person in the party. Her friends tell her it's dangerous, but she mentions that she's angry because Kajita tricked and hurt people. Oka hopes Seiji will stop her, but he supports her decision because he thinks they're the only ones who can solve the case. After that, Oka asks Ritsu about Kajita's skills, so she reveals that she doesn't know, but he seems to have the ability to see through lies. She reveals that his window was deformed, and notes that she hasn't seen anything like it, telling Oka to be careful of lies, so he decides to avoid bluffing when he's with Kajita. He thanks her for the info, and he recalls how Rhea was controlled by her special notes, but he thinks Kajita is nothing like her. Ritsu mentions that they need to make him pay, since he's using the casino to destroy rich people, and Oka decides to work with her because he knows that Kajita is evil. She reveals that she prayed for their party because she wants them to keep working together, and she notes that if true evil appears before her, she'll use her powers to send them to hell. They decide to infiltrate the casino, and Seika disguises herself as a celebrity as she recalls how Oka told her to avoid lying because Kajita might turn the tables on her. He also taught her how to talk to bad guys so that she won't share personal information, and he thinks they've made enough preparations for their meeting with Kajita. He suddenly greets her and tells her she looks amazing, asking her if she has decided to accept his offer. So she mentions that she'll become a member if he can give her a game worthy of her, and he's happy hearing this, telling her to follow him into the casino. She seems to be nervous, but Oka tells her everything will be okay because he'll stay by her side. Kajita leads them through a corridor and tells Seika to show her card at the entrance so that she can enter the extra stage. Oka knows that Kajita's skill activates when someone lies to him, so he thinks they need to give him as little information as possible. He tells her to enjoy the extra stage, as he shows her a beautiful room, and Oka realizes that there are more staff than customers. Kajita introduces her to a man named Kato, who will show her around the place, but he messes up his introduction because he's extremely nervous, so Oka thinks he must be new. Kajita suddenly starts talking to him and asks him if he also wants to play, but he thinks Kajita just wants to gather info from him, so he mentions that he has no money. He uses his ultra vision to look around and sees Kajita's assistant taking down notes about Seika, so he realizes that Kajita wants to learn more about her. He asks Oka if he's over level 70, and he knows that he can't lie, so he answers the question vaguely, but Kajita wonders if his attributes are high. So he mentions that he spent his points without thinking about it and left a lot of zeros, which is actually the truth because there's a lot of zeros on his status window. Kajita's assistant writes down everything he said, but Oka realizes that they're planning to use magic to crush him, so he realizes that they want to take him down. Kajita's assistant tells him he's needed elsewhere, so he tells Seika to have fun, promising to show her the monster battle when he returns. Kato mentions that he'll serve as her escort, and he tells her about the games they have in the stage, but Oka notices another man, who reminds him of his boss when he was a corporate slave. He notices Kajita carrying a piece of paper, which mentions that he has a liberation plan, and Oka wonders what it's all about. Kato struggles to answer Seika's questions, and he's under a lot of pressure, so Oka realizes that everything's going well, because their goal is to stay there without overspending. He pretends to have a stomachache, and mentions that he needs to use the restroom, so Kato prepares to show him the way, but Seika tells him to stay and answer her questions. Oka leaves to investigate Kajita, and he puts a guard to sleep, before using his transformation skill to turn into a bat. He sees Kajita entering a room, so he starts following him, as he uses his dimension magic to watch Seika, revealing that he can use it to reach her in case something happens. Kajita starts talking to his parents, and we learn that they struggled financially, but they taught him to live a happy and honest life. He always looked up to them, but one day, they resisted the request for eviction, so the real estate and developer decided to take them out. It was then that he started to hate rich people, and after several years, he was able to get revenge, but he thought about ending his life since he had accomplished his goal. He suddenly received the invitation to start a new life, and he decided to go for it, but he realized that the world still isn't fair, because the rich are making the poor suffer. He thinks money corrupted the souls of the rich, so they need to be purified with his liberation plan, which will punish them for their sins, and Oka realizes that he has dedicated his life to getting revenge. Kato suddenly appears, and he mentions that Seika wants to leave, because she thinks the place is boring. Kajita reminds him about their tactic, telling him they need to get her addicted to gambling, and he asks Kato's companion if he understands their plan, so he mentions that he does. But Kajita knows that he's lying, so he kills him with his magic, and orders a man to dispose of the body. He tells Kato not to lie to him, and asks him if he understands the plan, so he notes that they must let Seika win today, so that she'll be drawn into the games. Kajita is glad that he understands the plan, and tells him to keep up the good work, but Oka realizes that Kato is a corporate slave. Oka returns to Seika, who reveals that she just won 6 games in a row, so she now has 200 million yen. Kato tells her she doesn't always need to go all in, but she notes that it's her policy, and Oka knows that she could lose all of her money in an instant, but the plan is to let her win. So he tells her to keep going, but Kato suddenly walks away, and Oka knows that he'll report to Kajita. He touches a chip, and realizes that his zero earnings don't work on it, thinking it must be because it isn't money. But Kajita suddenly arrives, and he thinks he was right about Seika, because she appears to be an excellent player. He invites her to play a game that suits her better, telling her the rate will be higher, and it will be played at the Coliseum. He takes them to the underground arena, and everyone hears a roar, as he notes that the game is a monster battle. He shows them the monsters, and explains that they'll fight to the death, so he's sure that it will get everyone's adrenaline pumping. One of them bites the cage, so Seika is afraid of it, but he tells her to relax, and he uses his magic to make it calm down. Oka wonders where he got the monsters, because they appear to be unique, so Kajita reveals that they were made in the casino, and he asks Seika if she wants to play the game. But Oka mentions that they should let Seiji see the monsters, and Seika explains that they need to go home so that she can tell Seiji about the game. Kajita orders Kato to see them off, and as they ride the elevator, Seika realizes that he has a bruise on his face. He explains that he got it when he made a blunder, and tells her he's okay, but Oka knows that Kajita hit him. She uses her magic to heal him, but he wonders why she just did that, so she tells him it's because she's a great mage. He's touched by her actions, so he tells her to run and never return to the casino, as he explains the situation to her. She realizes that Kajita is after her, and Kato reveals that he hates his job, but he's afraid that he might get killed, so he still follows Kajita's orders. Oka tells him to run, because his life is in danger now that he has spilled the beans, but he explains that he can't, since Kajita already knows everything about him. He hopes that a hero will come to save them, and Seiji suddenly appears as Aldine, but Seika wonders why Ritsu is with him. So she explains that she infiltrated the casino alone, but he suddenly showed up, and he mentions that he'll take down the casino's manager. They hear the guards approaching, so Seiji tells the girls to escape through the stairs, and he removes his wings as he enters the elevator with Oka and Kato. Kato tells Seiji about Kajita's power, revealing that he punishes liars by draining their life force, and he knows if a person is lying, because his target will glow red in his eyes. The guards see them as they leave the elevator, and they ask Kato what's happening, but he tells everyone to evacuate, because the underground monsters are about to go out of control. So the people leave the casino, while Kato guides Seiji and Oka to the underground arena, where Kajita is carrying out his liberation plan. But a man suddenly uses the elevator, and Kato notes that it's the only way to reach the arena, so they need to wait for it to return. Seika suddenly appears in her angel form, and Seiji doesn't recognize her, so she introduces herself as the Maiden of the Sun Corona. She explains that she's there to help, because a girl asked her to save her friends, and she reveals that she has the power of healing. Seiji welcomes her to the group, and Oka realizes that they're both weirdos, but a demon also appears, so Seiji asks her who she is. Seika notes that she met her earlier, and Oka realizes it's Ritsu, but she stops him from revealing her identity, because she doesn't want the others to find out. She reveals that she used her skill to make her weapon, which Seiji and Seika find cool, so she uses her power to create weapons for them. Seiji asks for her name, but she mentions that she doesn't have one, so he decides to call her the Demon Girl. The elevator returns, so he tells Kato to evacuate while they take care of everything, but he doesn't want to leave. Oka explains that they need him to act as witness, because there are government officials involved in the case, so Kato must gather evidence about them. He tells the others to be careful as they ride the elevator, and Oka activates his buffs, as he tells his friends that he'll deal with Kajita, because he wants to punish him for his actions. We see the man who took the elevator reporting to Kajita, but he isn't happy with what's happening, so he uses his powers to kill the man, and prepares to deal with Oka and the others. Oka can't believe that Kajita killed his own man, and he notes that weapons aren't allowed in the casino, asking them if they want to fight his monsters. He reveals that the man he killed has the power of healing, and we see that he can now use it, so Ritsu realizes that he can steal the powers of the people that he kills. Seiji and the girls prepare to take him on, but Kajita suddenly turns the lights off, so they wonder what's happening. A voice welcomes them to the arena, while Oka realizes that Kajita has disappeared, so he starts looking for him as he saves a customer. A chimera comes out of its cage, and it breathes fire at them, but Ritsu extinguishes the flame, and everyone's impressed by her skills. It takes to the sky, and she checks its stats, revealing that it's a level 80 monster with dark attributes, so she suggests attacking it with the light element. Seiji dodges the Chimera's flames, and he manages to deflect a fireball, but he realizes that it hit the spot where Seika is standing, so he becomes worried. But he realizes that Ritsu was able to save her, and she tells him to keep moving so that the Chimera can't hit him. He continues to dodge its attacks, and it tries to crush him, but he destroys it with a pillar of light, and Oka is impressed that he was able to win despite the level difference. But it crashes into him before it disappears, so Seika heals him, and Oka realizes that his moment has been ruined. Ritsu knows that Seiji has leveled up, and she tells him to raise his defense, so he realizes that she can see his stats. The announcer praises him for defeating the Chimera, but notes that there are other monsters in the arena, and 2 other Chimeras come out of their cages, while Ritsu reveals that they're both level 200. Seiji orders Oka to go after Kajita, but he uses his debuff spell to slow down the monsters before he leaves, so that his friends will be able to defeat them. We see Kajita laughing as he watches the fight, and he mentions that he wants to liberate Seiji and his friends, but Oka suddenly appears behind him. So he tries to take him out, but Oka easily blocks his attacks, and Kajita asks him what he's doing backstage. He explains that he just wants to talk to him, but he sees that there are eggs everywhere, so he realizes that it's where Kajita breeds his monsters. He tries to stab Oka from behind, but he easily blocks the attacks, and tells Kajita he knows what's been happening in the casino, asking him if he hates the rich. So he explains that he doesn't like them, since they always make the poor suffer, thinking they're evil because money has corrupted them. He notes that his soul is pure since he has experienced poverty, and he thinks he must purify the rich, because they have fallen into depravity. Oka tells him to surrender, but he thinks Oka doesn't stand a chance against him, since he's already at level 521. He thinks he's so OP that even an army can't defeat him, but Oka tells him he's just like the rich people he hates, because he makes innocent people suffer. He's angry hearing this, as he recalls how rich people killed his parents, but Oka suddenly punches him away, and tells him he's an epic fighter. We return to Seiji and his friends, and we see that they're about to fight the last monster, but Ritsu notes that its stats are insane. Seika heals Seiji, who's determined to do whatever it takes to defeat the monster, so that they can meet up with Oka. Oka tells Kajita to surrender once again, but he refuses to give up, and summons his strongest monster, revealing that its level and stats are at 9,999, so he thinks its power is equal to a god. He notes that he doesn't know how Oka spent his points, but thinks he wasted all of them on his combat skills, so his magic must be 0. Kajita mentions that his monster can use the strongest spell in the world, and it casts the Thunder of Gods, which covers Oka with lightning, so Kajita thinks he's done for. But he suddenly uses a spell called Northern Cross Blizzard, which freezes the room and impales the monster with ice. He lunges forward and slices it in half, and Kajita wonders what just happened, so Oka explains that the Thunder of Gods is only the second strongest spell, and the Blizzard spell he used is the most powerful in the world. Kajita wonders how he can use magic, because he's supposed to be an epic fighter, so he explains that it's just a title given to him by Seiji, revealing that he's actually the Almighty God. Kajita knows that he isn't lying, but refuses to believe what he's saying, so he rushes at him, but he suddenly gets stabbed from behind, and he recognizes the weapon as the ordnance spear. A girl named Karina suddenly comes out of a portal, and tells him he shouldn't have stolen and killed one of their staff, who had the power to synthesize magic beasts. He notes that he did everything for her, because she told him she wanted to see another god, but she has no idea what he's saying. So he wonders if she's lying to him, calling her the Almighty God, and Oka is surprised hearing this, realizing she's just like him. She thinks Kajita is already dead, but she doesn't care, and she asks Oka if he wants to talk, because she knows that he's also an Almighty God. He tells her to stay away, so she asks him if he's shy, but we learn that he's being careful, because he could die if she touches him. He asks her why she killed Kajita, because they're supposed to be on the same side, and she explains that they both belong to the group called the Ordnance Spear, but she notes that he's just another guy who worshipped her. She reveals that the weapon she used to kill him is just a symbol, and notes that their group is an alliance of reincarnated people who can't live as ordinary citizens. She mentions that most of their members are criminals and misfits who could cause chaos if they did whatever they wanted, so they decided to create a group to maintain order in the world. Oka asks her if she was the one who made the group, but she tells him she's just working with them to get rid of troublesome members like Kajita. She invites Oka to join them because she thinks his appearance also makes him a misfit, telling him he must have set his looks to the lowest possible value to max out his stats. So he realizes that she knows how attributes work, and she wonders what else he's sacrificed to become the Almighty God, thinking it must be his desire to be with women. She notes that he's just like a samurai who's ready to take his own life, and she tells him she's lonely because everyone is no match for her. But she thinks he's the only exception because he also made sacrifices to become the Almighty God, and she wants him to be her friend since he might be the only one who can understand her. He tells her they can be friends, but notes that he won't join the Ordnance Spear because his goal is to guide his friends in this world, and he invites her to join him. But she realizes that they won't get along, and she tells him she'll become an obstacle for him, so he wonders what he did to make her upset. Kajita suddenly gets back up, and he knows that she lied to him because she once told him she wanted to meet a god. She admits that he's right, revealing that she wants to see a god who would guide her whenever she's struggling, and he prepares to steal her powers. But she uses her portal to cut his arm, and her mask is knocked off, so she becomes embarrassed because Oka can now see her face. But she tells him she needs to go home, so she bids him farewell and leaves through her portal. After a week, they all celebrate, and we see that they now have a mountain of cash, which they received from the government for stopping Kojita. We learn that Seiji didn't want to accept it when the officials gave it to them because he only acted for justice, but Oka told him that the government would have problems if he turned down the reward. Aldine and his friends were supposed to receive a huge portion of it, but they didn't appear, so Seiji's party received half of it instead because they were involved in the incident. Seiji notes that Kajita's ending is ironic because he was crushed by the castle he built, and we learn that Oka made it look like he died when the casino collapsed, but he never told anyone about Karina. Seika tells Oka they're now wealthy, and we learn that they have millions of yen, but Seiji notes that the money can disappear in an instant if they don't know how to use it. She reminds Seiji that he gave it to her as party strengthening funds, so she plans to spend all of it to make everyone stronger, and Oka thinks it's a great idea. The next day, Oka tells Seiji about the Ordnance Spear, and notes that they could become obstacles for him if he wants to become a hero. Oka shows him their flag, and explains that it was attached to the spear that served as their symbol, so he thinks they should ask people about it. Kato suddenly joins them, and he calls Seiji a hero, so he explains that he isn't Aldine, but Oka knows that Kato already knows the truth since it's obvious. He reveals that the wealthy customer they rescued is looking for an escort because he wants to return to his hometown safely, and we learn that he's the president of a company that creates weapons. Seiji accepts the task, and Kato reveals that the customer's name is Sakurai, so Oka realizes that he's his boss from his previous world. After that, Seiji's party meets Sakurai, who thanks him for saving his life, but he suddenly notices Seika, and he kneels before her, as Oka recalls that he was notorious for harassing girls. They ride the carriage together, and Oka is glad that Sakurai doesn't recognize him, but we see Karina watching them, as she notes that Oka looks like a hypocrite. They later arrive in Sakurai's hometown, where they join him for dinner, and Seika is amazed by the food, but Oka recalls that Sakurai doesn't eat much, because he's trying to control his uric acid levels. But a girl named Matsu uses her recovery spell on him while he's eating, and Oka realizes that it's how he resets his uric acid levels. He reveals that Seiji showed him the flag of the Ordnance Spear, and notes that he doesn't recognize it, but he thinks one of his employees might know about it. The next day, a man named Saburo welcomes them to the Sakurai Weapons Company, and he shows them around, as he explains how they make their products. He shows them how their knives can cut a tomato easily, and Seika tells him she wants to see more, so he tells her to watch the live demonstrations at the direct sales segment. She leaves with Ritsu, and Seiji asks Saburo about the flag they found, thinking he must know something about it since he makes weapons. He reveals that he doesn't recognize it, but notes that he once handled a custom order, where a group of people ordered 1,000 spears from him. He mentions that they wore cloaks with a similar pattern, but they suddenly disappeared after he gave them their order, and he tried to visit their house, but he realized that it was empty. Oka asks him about the Ordnance Spear, so he reveals that he's never heard of it, but Ritsu suddenly interrupts them, telling them something happened to Seika. But they realize that she's just doing a live demonstration, and Saburo realizes that she has talent, so he wants her to join them. That evening, Seiji tells Oka he wants to start a company for their party's future, and he notes that it's difficult to move with the money they have, because they can't trust the financial institutions in this world. He mentions that they need to uncover the true nature of the Ordnance Spear, and thinks creating a company will help them achieve their goal, because they'll be able to recruit allies to their side. But Oka mentions that he's against it, because it's too risky, and he reminds Seiji about his special notes. Oka tells him he can't betray his friends, so if one of them rebelled against him, he can't do anything to harm them. Oka tells him to become king instead, and surround himself with trustworthy confidants who will govern the people for him while he oversees everything from above. Oka thinks it's the best way for him to rule, since he won't be bound by his special notes, but he thinks Oka wants him to run the company like that, so he decides to hire a president. He thanks Oka for the advice, but he realizes that Seiji misunderstood him, and he recalls how his comment from the previous world affected Seiji's company. He tells Oka to become one of his founding members, since he wants him to serve as one of his confidants, but Oka thinks he shouldn't be in the company. He tells Seiji about his special notes, revealing that his income rate is 0, so money will disappear as soon as he touches it. But Seiji thinks it doesn't matter, because he's a good person, telling him he could have used his special notes to erase their money, so that they would have become as miserable as him. Seiji begs Oka to lend him his strength, so he decides to work with him, telling him to make sure their company is a success. The next day, Seiji tells the girls about their plan to start a company, explaining that they'll create a support system for those marginalized by their special notes. The girls decide to join him, and Seika asks him what he'll be naming the company, but he wants to call it the Burning Flare Humans, and everyone thinks it sounds ridiculous. After that, they leave Sakurai's hometown and return to Valeria, where they start their company. A month later, Seiji introduces his friends to the company president Kai, telling them he was the one who gave him info about the casino. He reveals that Seiji hired him to pose as a casino employee, and Oka wonders how he survived, since Kajita could detect lies, so Kai reveals that keeping a low profile is his special skill. Seiji mentions that Kai will be managing their company, and Kato suddenly appears, revealing that he'll also be working with them. Seiji notes that he's the chairman of their company Vice Bridge, which will focus on presenting a path to living a just life, even for those who are suffering because of their special notes. He explains that the name of their company means Bridge to the Light, and Oka is glad that they ended up with a decent name, but Seiji notes that they have a top-secret mission. He mentions that they need to gather info about the Ordnance Spear, and we learn that Oka already told everyone about it, but he didn't tell them about Karina, since she also was an absolute god. Oka trains Seika on how to work there, while Seiji checks the documents of the prospective registrants, and Ritsu uses her ability to investigate them. We see Seika and Oka interviewing the registrants, and one of them mentions that he's suffering, revealing that he can't accept money because of his special notes. Seika tells him he can accept goods as payment instead of money, and he wonders why he never thought of that, while she notes that they're experts in managing special notes. He thanks her for her advice, and Oka notes that she has become a dependable member of the company, but as the next registrant arrives, Oka becomes nervous seeing a woman, and he gets a feeling that something bad is about to happen. She's afraid of him since he looks like a monster, so Seika explains that he's the company's mascot, but she finds it strange that they're keeping such an ugly creature with them. She knows that they match people with jobs that fit their skills, and she wonders if they have a job for her, so Seika tells her to fill out the entry sheet. But she wonders if she really needs to write down her special notes, so Seika explains that their goal is to overcome them, and tells the woman about Rhea, who now lives a normal life despite her special notes. We see Seiji as he reads a bounty list, and Kato explains that he collected the information from a government office, thinking it would help them find the members of the Ordnance Spear. Seiji notes that they're all wanted criminals, and he checks out their pictures, noting that they're all dangerous. We return to the woman, as she writes down her special notes, and gives the entry sheet to Seika, who realizes that her name is Leah. She asks Seika if she can look at her hand, so she opens it for Leah, who asks her if she has a secret. Seika thinks she can read her mind, but Leah reveals that she just used a trick that fortune tellers use, which is known as cold reading. She explains that it works by asking questions that apply to anyone, and reveals that she was a popular fortune teller in the previous world, so Seika thinks she's amazing. We learn that she used to be a night worker, and her job was to sit and drink with men, but a salesperson from a trading firm taught her fortune telling, and Oka realizes that she's referring to him. She notes that he was a strange guy, who brought new employees from their company to the bar, and swapped the position of new employees with the night workers, so that he could teach them how to sell. He also taught them tricks to connect with people, which included fortune-telling, and he gave her a book about the subject, so she became interested in it. She read the book until the end, and saw a note on the last page, which mentions that he'll never let her down. She continued to learn about the subject, and became known as the goddess of fortune-telling, but she mentions that it's all thanks to her teacher. That evening, Oka talks to Ritsu, who tells him that the background check of the applicants is almost over. But he notes that he never expected to be a company employee again, and he asks her if she knows what happened to him in the previous world. She knows that he was falsely accused, revealing that she looked into his case, so she knows that the girl who framed him had a history of lying about it. She tells him she believes in him, and he's glad that she knows the truth, but she mentions that they need to continue with the background check. He notes that the next applicant is Leah, and he uses his search skill to look for her, but he wonders what she's doing in such a strange place. She approaches a girl and asks her if she owes the man who lives there, so she reveals that her brother was sick and she had to borrow 10,000 yen to pay for his medicine. But her debt has reached 1 million yen, and she cries since she doesn't know what to do, while Leah mentions that the loan shark will sell her if she can't pay the amount she owes him. The loan shark named Kaido appears, and he recognizes Leah, asking her if she's messing with his customer again. Oka recalls that he was on the wanted list, and he sees the flag of the ordnance spear, so he realizes that Kaido belongs to the group. He tells the girl that today is her deadline, but she begs him to waive the interest, since she can only pay him 10,000 yen. But he tells her not to underestimate him, and Ritsu reads his window, revealing that he values money more than lives, and he doesn't believe in gods. He starts threatening the girl, but Leah offers to buy her, and he wonders why she keeps buying his customers. But she reminds him that he's a wanted man, so he needs to hide from the authorities, and she mentions that it's safer for him to sell the girl now, so that he can get rid of her. So he agrees to sell her to Leah, who uses her suppressed skill on the girl, explaining that it will stop her from taking her own life, and she tells the girl that she now belongs to her. But she orders her to return home, and Oka tells Ritsu to follow her, while Leah asks Kaido about the other kid who will pay him today. So he explains that the boy is already dead, since he took on a dangerous quest to receive a huge reward, but he never made it back. Kaido invites her to join the ordnance spear, but she explains that she isn't interested, and tells him she needs to leave since the night wind is bad for her skin. After Leah returns home, she starts crying since she couldn't save the boy, and Oka watches her from a distance, while Ritsu tells him that the company is taking care of the girl and her little brother. He realizes that Leah isn't evil, but we see Karina in the city, and she seems to recognize Leah. The next day, Oka takes Seika to a carnival, where they approach an ice cream stand, but he realizes that everyone's afraid of him since he looks like a monster. She mentions that she wants to win a doll in a darts game, so she decides to give it a try, but she completely misses the target. Oka gives her tips on how to improve her aim, but a girl suddenly plays the game, and she hits the bullseye, so the shopkeeper gives her the prize. Oka is surprised to see that it's Karina, and she gives the doll to Seika, telling her she wants to be her friend. But Seika doesn't appear to be interested, and Karina asks her if she has friends, so she tells her about Leah. She tells Karina she needs to learn about her before they become friends, and she invites Seika to check out the parade, where the people freak out as they see Oka. Karina tells Seika that she always wanted to see God, and she wonders what kind of person he is, but Seika wonders why she thinks God is a person. So she explains that an almighty God is a reincarnated person who has sealed one of the human desires. She mentions that she knows a male god who has sealed the desire to be with women, and a female god who has given up the desire for sleep and intimacy. But Seika notices that Oka isn't feeling well, so Karina suggests taking a break. They head to a restaurant, where Oka asks Karina what she's trying to do, so she reminds him that her goal is to get in his way. She knows that the difference in their stats is huge, so she decides to tell him her weakness to make things interesting, revealing that she'll disappear if the man she loves kisses her. She tells him to make her fall in love with him, but he isn't interested, and she thinks it's because of Seika. Karina notes that she's so pure and innocent, but she wonders what will happen if Seika loses someone close to her, so she decides to make Leah her next target. He's ready to defend his friends if she tries to harm them, but Seika suddenly calls him, and they realize that Karina has disappeared. After that, Leah returns to Vice Bridge, where she mentions that she wants to withdraw her application, since she thinks she isn't worthy to be in the company. She reveals that her teacher was falsely accused of a crime, so she looked for the girl who ruined his life, but she realized that the girl received probation since she was a minor. So she decided to take matters into her own hands and attack the girl with her knife, but she wanted to end her life after the incident. So she put her last words in her special notes, where she wrote that she's a terrible person and she wants to meet a god who will help her while disguised as a prince. She mentions that she wants to atone for her sins, but she realized that she can't save everyone, so she thinks she doesn't deserve to be in the company. She starts to leave, but Seika stops her and tells her it's hard to tell right from wrong, but she believes that Leah is a brave person since she stood up for someone. Seiji talks to the others about Leah, so Ritsu tells them about how she rescued slaves from the Ordnance Spear, and she even cried when she failed to save a boy. So Seiji realizes that she's a selfless person, and he decides to welcome her to the company, but the girl's brother suddenly appears and tells everyone that his sister is in trouble. He reveals that Kaido took her away, and Leah thinks about stopping him, so Oka tells her not to be reckless, and notes that he'll assemble people at the company. But she mentions that she has a score to settle with Kaido, and she suddenly disappears, as Oka wonders if she used her special note skill. Seiji and Ritsu wonder what happened, so Oka reveals that Leah left to save the girl, and he leaves with Ritsu to go after them. But they fall into Karina's portal, and she mentions that she'll take Leah away, revealing that she has a history with her. She teleports them outside the castle, and Ritsu asks Oka about her, so he reveals that she's an almighty god named Karina. But Ritsu tells him her real name is Reiko, and she's the sister of the girl who framed him. Seiji checks Kaido's wanted poster and notes that he's a member of the Ordnance Spear, but Seika mentions that she'll help Leah since she's her friend. Seiji decides to join her, since Leah is a member of their company, and he tells Kato and Kai to look after the boy while they're away. We see Leah as she heads to Kaido's hideout, and she asks him why he broke his promise to her, so he reveals that he got a better offer. Karina comes out of her portal, telling him he did a good job, and she gives him his payment, but he mentions that it isn't enough. She tells him to get lost, and notes that it's more than he deserves, so he walks away with his men, while she tells Leah it's her lucky day, since she's about to kill her. Leah doesn't recognize her, and she tells the girl to run to the company, since her brother is waiting for her there. But Karina mentions that she knows who Leah is, and notes that she wants to ruin Seika's innocence, so that she'll stop believing in God. Meanwhile, Kaido and his men discuss what happened at the casino, and he mentions that Karina is the only one who could have killed Kajita. He's afraid that they could end up like him, but he notes that she didn't pay them in full, so he thinks they should teach her a lesson. We return to Karina, as she explains that killing Leah will make Seika hate her, and thinks it will stain her soul, so she'll never believe in God again. But Karina reveals that there's another reason why Leah is her target, and she reminds Leah about the girl she attacked, so she wonders if that's who she is. She tells her she isn't the girl, so Leah wonders who she is, but she doesn't answer her question and prepares to kill her. But Kaido suddenly declares that he doesn't believe in God, and she falls to the ground, wondering why her powers are working. He notes that she betrayed their organization since she killed Kajita in the casino, and he tells her he doesn't believe in the power of God, since money is all he believes in. But Leah uses the chance to get away, and Kaido is worried that she might call for reinforcements, so he orders his men to look for her. He tells Karina she can't move since her powers are disabled, and promises to kill her after he's done with Leah, thinking he can make money by killing a god. We see Leah hiding behind a pillar when Seiji appears as Aldine, and she doesn't recognize him, so he reveals that he's a wandering hero who fights evil. Seika tells her to trust him, but Leah explains that he's no match for Karina since she's an almighty god. She tells Seika to escape, but she mentions that she wants to help her since they're friends, and Oka thinks it's time to make his entrance. So he calls out to Aldine, but he suddenly turns into a prince, so Seiji doesn't recognize him, and Ritsu arrives with a mirror, so he realizes he looks different. Leah thinks he's the prince from her special notes, and she tells him she's happy to see him, but Seiji wonders who he is. He doesn't want them to know his real identity, so he introduces himself as Schneider, and Leah passes out because she can't handle his aura. Kaido's men recognize Seiji and his friends, since they were the ones who crashed the casino, and Kaido orders his men to attack. Oka mentions that the Ordnance Spear is also his enemy, so Seiji decides to work with him, and he sends the enemies flying with his whirlwind slash. Oka uses his wind kick, but an enemy mage blocks it, and he realizes that he has gotten weaker since his looks improved. Kaido tells his men about their battle plan, but a bird suddenly approaches him, and Karina uses her magic to disable his senses. She reveals that she was able to overcome his special notes by making it impossible for him to recognize her as a god, and his men beg for their lives, since they know that they're no match for her. But she blasts all of them with her lightning spell, and Leah wonders how she got there, since Kaido disabled her godly powers. Ritsu thinks she removed her title of god by using her transformation magic to change her form and attributes, but Seika can't believe that she's a god. Oka protects his friends with his barrier, but Karina uses her thunder elemental spell, which destroys everything in the area. We see Oka trapped under rubble, and he notes that he can't lift it since his looks made him weaker, but Karina approaches him, wondering why he looks so handsome. He mentions that he knows who she is, and he wonders if she's trying to get revenge on Leah, since she killed her sister Kyoko. Karina explains that she's actually grateful to Leah, but notes that Kyoko is still alive, since Leah couldn't bring herself to kill her. Karina notes that she hates Kyoko, since she ruins people's lives, and we learn that she has always been a monster, so nobody liked her. But people took it out on Karina since she looked like her sister, and she notes that she felt better after she met her god, but Kyoko took him away from her. So she was left with her only friend, which was a doll named Karina, and she was happy when Kyoko was attacked, since she thought her suffering was about to end. But Kyoko was able to survive, and she thought about removing her life support, but she couldn't bring herself to do it. She received the notification on her phone, so she decided to start a new life, and she sealed her desire to be with men and her need for sleep, so that she could become an almighty god. She mentions that she was happy when she met Oka, since he's also a god, but she's disappointed that he chose to guide Seika instead of her. Seika heals Leah's injuries, but Karina suddenly approaches them, telling Seika to step aside and watch Leah die. She refuses to leave her behind, since she wants to protect her friends, but Karina mentions that she wants to destroy their bond, and she prepares to attack them. Seika transforms into her angel form, and tells Leah not to tell anyone about it, revealing that she used the power of her special notes. Karina summons her lightning, but Seika protects Leah with her barrier, and Karina realizes that her magic defense is impressive, so she prepares to use physical attacks against her. Seika tells her she wants to talk to her, so that they can become friends, but Karina notes that a god can't be friends with humans, and she charges at Seika. She kicks Seika while she's down, telling her she hates her for being kind, and Leah tries to stop her, but Karina knocks her down and prepares to kill her. Seiji suddenly punches her away, and Ritsu attacks her from behind, so she crashes to the ground. Seiji mentions that he won't let anyone hurt his friends, telling her he has come to stop her, and he charges in with Ritsu, but Karina easily blocks their attacks. He manages to land a solid hit, but she asks him if that's all he can do, and he can't believe that his fist can't hurt her. She attacks them with her thunder spear, which instantly knocks them out, telling them they look better like that, but she still wants to make them bleed. We see Oka as he regains consciousness, and he worries about his friends, but he's too weak to get himself free. Karina asks Seiji about justice, mentioning how she was thrown to the ground and humiliated by the bandits. She remembers how she always suffered and had to put up with it in the previous world, so she thinks it's natural to want revenge. Seiji tells her he understands her anger, and he offers to let her take it out on his body, saying that she doesn't need to go through it alone. She suddenly stabs him, and she's surprised that he can take it, so he mentions that he will never give up for the sake of his friends. Karina kicks him away, but Ritsu holds him up, as she reveals that she used her special notes so that they would all meet in this world, and Seiji finally realizes who she is. Karina finds them annoying, so she unleashes her lightning, and prepares to finish them all off. Oka thinks about how he can't protect anyone, but Seika appears by his side, revealing that she wanted to be an angel, so that she could heal her friends that are hurt. In a flashback, we see that Seika was in an accident where she lost her parents, and she ended up in a wheelchair. The other kids bully her for looking like a monster, but Oka comes to her rescue, so the kids call him ugly and run away. He helps Seika get back home, calling her pretty, but she notes that she's a monster under her bandages. He still calls her beautiful, as he writes something down, mentioning how she didn't make fun of the way he looks, and how she didn't say anything about the boys when she could hate them, so he thinks that someone as warm as her is beautiful. He gives her a paper crane, and he tells her to read what's inside if she gets lost again. We see her opening it up, and it tells her to find a path and pursue what she loves. He tells her to take the hands of the people that reach out, and he hopes to see her again so that he can also offer her his hand, promising never to let her down. After that, we see Seika learning more about the world, and things start to improve for her. She receives the reincarnation message, but she thinks Oka was right, because she met people who offered her their hands, and she was able to find her freedom, so she wants to do the same for someone else. Oka realizes who she is, but Karina throws a huge lightning ball at them. Seika uses all her power and manages to stop it, but she ends up passing out. Oka remembers how even though he was ugly, he was able to be proud of himself, and he suddenly breaks free as he returns to his original form. Seika wonders if he's the man from her past, but he tells her to let him handle the rest. Karina prepares another attack, but he sends her through a portal and he follows after her. As they fight in the other dimension, they seem to be evenly matched. Oka notes that they aren't worthy to be gods, and he thinks they should reconsider how they spend their second chance at life. He calls her Reiko, but she hates her old name, and she blasts him with her lightning. He tries to counter it with his own attack, but he ends up being overpowered. He thinks she's too strong, but he sees her begging for God to kill her sister. Oka notes that Kyoko also destroyed his life, but he was able to become a different person after reincarnating. He wonders if she's still being held captive by the curse of her sister, but she's just sick of everything, and she tries to finish him off. Oka launches rocks to counter, but it's not enough, and he starts to get hit. She tells him there's no point in resisting, since she's better than him in every skill, but he notes that he was just testing to see if he could summon things within the space. He uses his meteor strike skill, summoning a massive meteorite, but Karina notes that the ultimate skill of the staff is able to erase anything. She prepares to destroy it, but Oka notes that this was his plan, as he recalls that activating the ultimate staff skill has a lag. He puts 100 quadrillion of his spare points into agility, as he plans to hit her during the lag. He gets above the meteor, and he suddenly shatters it, as he flies at Karina with everything he has, causing a huge explosion. We see Oka making it out of the space, and the others come rushing over, glad that he's okay. Seiji notes that Karina seems to be gone, but Oka suggests that it was Schneider who dealt with her, and Seiji thinks he needs to get stronger since he was useless in the battle. After that, the bandits are handed over to the authorities, and the company starts to take off. We see Oka having hamburgers with Seika, and he notes that she's still as clumsy as ever. He thinks about how it was because of their prayers and wishes that they all ended up together, but Ritsu and Seiji suddenly appear, mentioning that they received information about the Ordnance Spear. So they need to have an emergency meeting, but as Seika grabs his hand, he gets shocked and takes massive damage. He tells her he's fine and runs after the others, but he swears to make her happy and promises never to let her down. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.